Before I introduce you to our presenter today, here's a bit of background on the Institute. The Sikh Research Institute's mission is to provide educational resources to Sikhs to lead a Guru-inspired life. As a global nonprofit organization, we provide original online courses, research papers, videos, podcasts, events, and books to create the largest go-to source of Sikh knowledge online. Please note that we will begin today's presentation with a 40-minute presentation, including an interactive activity, which will be followed by a brief Q&A. So please drop your questions in the chat box and be sure to include your name and your city. Now I would like to introduce you to our presenter today. Jasmine Kaur has worked in the education field for over 20 years and holds degrees in elementary education, sociology, human development, and family studies. Jasmine served as the Director of Education with SikhRI for over 8 years and was the coordinator and chief developer of the Sojhi, Gurmat and Panjabi education resource. She's developed training using curriculum to increase classroom confidence and maximize the resources in content areas of Boli and Virsa, as well as classroom management and teaching techniques. Currently, she lives in Ashburn, Virginia with her husband and twins who keep her very busy and remind her every day how blessed she is. Please welcome Jasmine.
Vahiguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vahiguru Ji Ki Fateh, everyone. Hope you can hear me, and Manvinder Penji, you can give me a thumbs up if you can. Okay, or a shake. Thank you. I hope everyone is doing wonderfully. It's kind of different for me to do this presentation when I can't see any of you. You know, sometimes because of our situation right now, you know, that's something that we're starting to learn. So for everyone, it's a new learning experience. But the reason why I like to see all of you is because that I can interact with you a lot. But we're all up for the challenge, right? And the challenge is that we're still going to try to interact. So when I put up the presentation, in there, through the slides, we'll have like a couple of questions. One or two of the questions are written on the slides, and a lot of them I'm going to ask you. So one thing I would like you to do, because I know it's hard for you to tell me, and you know it's hard for me to keep reading the chat, is try to get a piece of paper or pencil next to you, or if your mommy or daddy or dadi or dada, if someone is around you, nana, nani, you can tell them the answer. And then that will help, you know, you kind of make it interactive with me. So as all of you know, our presentation is called Getting to Know Vahiguru. Okay, so for us, you know, I'm going to just make sure that I put it up. Okay, and I think everyone should be able to say where it says Getting to Know Vahiguru and Jasmine Kaur. Okay, so the very first thing for us that, you know, I think about and that comes to my mind is the idea of, well, where are we going to find out about Vahiguru? And the first thing to me comes to mind is in the Guru Granth Sahib Ji, right? Because we often go to the Gurdwara, or even in our houses, if we have the Guru Granth Sahib Ji, we go and we matha take. And matha take is giving up our mind and trying to understand what the Guru has to say, take the Guru's mind to understand what the Guru is telling us. So Guru Sahib is telling us, you know, where to get to know Vahiguru a little bit more, or Onkar, right? That's what Guru Sahib has spoken about. So the very first question I have for you is, who has written Barney in the Guru Granth Sahib? So think about this question, and if you have a paper and pencil, you can jot down all your ideas. And some of you probably are learning at school, or when you were, you know, if you're older kids, you've already done this. And some of you are doing it now, that when you stop and jot, then, you know, you try to remember things a lot. So right now you're kind of stopping and jotting and telling me, or telling anyone at home, who has written Bani in Guru Granth Sahib Ji. let's think about that. So first of all, I'm hoping that some of you said it was the gurus, right? And some of you were probably thinking, oh, it was all the gurus. All the 10 gurus have Barni in Guru Granth Sahib Ji. But actually, only the first to the fifth guru and the ninth Guru Sahib have Barni in Guru Granth Sahib Ji. So Guru Nanak Sahib, Guru Angad Sahib, Guru Amar Das Sahib, Guru Ram Das Sahib, Guru Arjan Sahib, and Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib. Okay, so first thing that comes to our mind is, yeah, it's going to be all the gurus, but we know that there are actually only 6 gurus that have Barni. Then there's also 3 or 6 of the guru who have Barni in Guru Granth Sahib, and they are Baba Sundar Ji, who was the great grandson of Guru Amar Das Sahib Ji. And then I'm sure many of you have heard of this already, some a group that's called Satta and Balwand. Okay, and they were the Kirtaniyas in Guru Sahib's court. Okay, so they have Barni that is written in there, and they talk about the gurus a lot. Okay, and then we have someone called the parts. So the parts, there's 17 different parts, and they were kind of poets who had experienced, and had the vision, and of the gurus also. So they celebrate the spirituality of the gurus in their verse, in their shabads, in their slokas. Okay, and then we have 15 Bhagats. Now, I'm sure many of you have heard of Bhagats, right? So Bhagats are literally, it means a devotee, someone who is devoted to someone. And in this case, they're devoted to Vahiguru. Okay, so they also wrote, because what they had to say was the same message as what the gurus were saying. Then Guru Arjan Sahib and all the other gurus, they decided to bring their Barnis in for us as well. So today we are going to talk about one of these Bhagats over here. Okay, and if you read the description, you might already know that we are going to be talking about Bhagat Kabir Ji. So before we go talk about a little bit about Bhagat Kabir Ji, how many of you got some of the answers right as to who has Gurbani in Guru Granth Sahib Ji? I'm pretty sure a lot of you. Okay, so let's talk about Bhagat Kabir Ji. Okay, so Bhagat Kabir Ji was born in 1398. I already gave you the answer over here that he was 71 years before Guru Nanak Sahib. So when was Guru Nanak Sahib born? Who's a math whiz? I'm sure many of you either knew this, 1469, or you'll calculate it and you'll figure it out, right? So Guru Nanak Sahib was born in 1469, and Bhagat Kabir Ji, he was born in 1398. So 71 years before Guru Nanak Sahib, but the thought that he had about Ikponkar, about Vahiguru, about the qualities of Vahiguru was the same. And during that time that Bhagat Kabir Ji was born, there was a lot of political upheaval going on. And all the shabads that come of the Bhagat Barni, like all the Bhagats that I just showed you, the 15, they come in usually padas or sloks, they're called. And Bhagat Kabir Ji is the one who has the most number of Barnis, the most number of shabads compared to the other Bhagats. And you see a picture over here, right? That's a picture of Bhagat Kabir Ji, and he is doing something. What does it look like he's doing? Well, actually, he was a weaver, right? He used to make cloth. He was a weaver, and oftentimes, back in the day, the weaving mill used to be outside. And when it was outside, this is how I imagine him. When I think about doing this workshop, when I do this workshop, I usually try to imagine, what kind he was. And my feeling always is that he was outside and doing his work, and often he was thinking and contemplating about, Guru Sahib, about Vahiguru. And I think that he probably had like a strong feeling about nature. He had, he really loved nature, and being outside actually helped him a lot to get to know nature. So, what I want to do is, I want us to kind of take a deep breath and act and think as if we are going on a nature walk with Bhagat Kabir Ji. Okay? So, we're going to go on a nature walk with Bhagat Kabir Ji. And as we are walking, along we come to this. And I have something similar with me. As I was going on a walk a couple of days ago, I came across these two. Can you see them? And I'm going to put them in my hand and show them. Oh, did I do a good job being able to show them? It's a little tricky to do it, right? There you go. And what are these? How many of you said, oh, yeah, those are rocks. Oh, yeah, those are pebbles. I'm sure a lot of you said that, right? They're like, oh, yeah, we see those all the time, right? No, that's right. You probably do see them all the time. So Bhagat Kabir Ji, by the way, I have a question for you. Do you see them up on trees? Or do you see them low on the ground? You're right. You probably said low on the ground, right? That was pretty given. So yes, majority of the time you see them low on the ground. And I'm curious. I want to know, what word did Bhagat Kabir Ji use for these rocks, these little pebbles? What Panjabi word can you think of? There was always a word I used to think of when I used to think of it. And the word that used to come to my mind is, I see some of you are answering the questions in the chat, which is really cool too. So if you want to write some of the words that come to your mind in Punjabi, what did he say? Did he call it patthar? Is that the first word that came to your mind? It always used to come to my mind. Patthar used to always come to my mind. But Bhagat Kabir Ji actually didn't use the word patthar. He used the word roda. And this is what he says. So this is a Sabad, okay? In the end, we're going to read the whole Sabad together. So this is one of his sloks. And he says, Kabir, roda hoye ro batka, taj man ka abman. So over here, we know that roda is what the pebbles are called, okay? So these pebbles are called roda. Can all of you say it with me? What are they called? I think I can hear you deep in my heart. You're saying roda, right? Roda. Kabir, roda hoye ro batka, taj man ka abman. So you know what? Because see, he was always thinking of Vahiguru in some ways, right? He said, I see these pebbles, and what it makes me think of is that, you know what? Become like this pebble. It's low on the ground, right? Giving itself up. It's giving itself up. So it's becoming very, what? Is it very humble? Is it very low to the ground? Very humble, right? So he says, Aisa koi das hoye tai mile Bhagwan. You know what? When there is an individual who kind of has the qualities of these pebbles that are so low to the ground, that's when you can become a servant of Vahiguru, a servant of Bhagwan. Bhagwan is another word that some people use for Vahiguru, but also means like the most blessed one, right? Which is Vahiguru. So the most fortunate of fortunates, right? So he said that in order for us to get to know Vahiguru, we need to start thinking of humility. And by the way, what's the word that he used for those little pebbles? You got it. It was Rora, right? Yes. So he says, okay, these Roras that I have, these are really great. They're so low down. I think if I become like this, that'll make me humble. And then I'll be able to kind of meet my Vahiguru. Then I'll be able to kind of connect with my Vahiguru. And then he says, Kabir, Rora hua ta kya bhaya, panthi ko dukh de. So we know Rora is pebbles, and Panthi is the one who is walking on the path. And Dukh is what happens if I'm walking on the pebbles without my shoes or socks or anything? Do they end up hurting me? Probably, right? So Kabir Rora hua ta kya bhaya, Panthi ko dukh de. Kabir, Rora, it's good to be a Rora. It's good to be humble. It's very good. But there's also a quality of a Rora that can hurt me, that can hurt someone. So I don't want to become that kind of an individual who ends up hurting someone somehow, okay? And not being like able to stand up for them or do anything for them. So I don't want to be that kind of a person. So again, he's on his walk. Remember, we're all on this walk with him in a way. And then he thinks of something else. And what do you think he thinks of? Some of you want to put it in the chat. What do you think he's thinking of? Okay, remember when I asked the question about I asked the question as to where we found the what was the word he used for rocks? Yeah, did all of you say Corona? Right. We said it was low to the ground. And what is even lower than that? What are the rocks usually sitting on? Usually it's like this dust and sand underneath, right? So what is the word that he uses for that? Can we think of the word that he uses for that? So think about dust, dirt, sand, and the word that he ends up using is, he says, ऐसा तेरा दास है जो धरनी में खे. On this earth, the little sand, the dust, that is really how your das should be, your servant should be, the one who wants to think of you should be. And so what is the word that he used? You can see the red, and the word is ke. Okay? So first he said, hey, I think we should be like Roras. Roras are so humble, and that's how we are going to be able to meet Vahiguru. And then he says, oh, but wait a minute, Roras can actually hurt your foot, your body, right? And he says, so maybe we don't be like a Rora, maybe we be like K, because K is even lower than the Rora, right? And it's just like so part of the earth. So that would be a good idea. And what do you think? Is he going to say, that's it? We're going to be like K, and that's how we are going to get to meet Vahiguru? Who thinks so? You can tell me if you want to tell me in the chat. Anyone? Okay. So a lot of you are thinking probably like, no, he's going to say something else. And what do you think he's going to say? So think about it. What happens when there is a big, huge windstorm? A lot of you said, no, right? I see it right now. A lot of you are saying no in the chat. That's not going to happen. So tell me, what's going to happen when there's a storm? What is going to happen to all that dust? Where is it going to come? On me, on you, on all the other people around, right? So then he says, you can see it. It's coming on this person over here. Kabir, ke hui to kya bhaya, jo ud lage ang. It flies. Ud ke mere body de utte aa janda hai. Ang. It comes on to all my parts, right? So Kabir, ke hui to kya bhaya, jo ud lage ang. So now when we want to think of this in terms of a person, we want to be kind of careful, right? So yes, you can be humble, but any little thing that you can say that is not right, or anyone comes and instigates you about someone else. If someone comes to me and says something about Manvinder Panji, right, who was with us in the beginning, and it's not true, and I go and say it to everyone else, it's like spreading the storm of negativeness, right? And it's gonna hurt me. So what if I'm always humble? So what if I'm always low? But just because someone came and said something to me and I spread this storm and get on other people, then that's not a cool quality to really have, right? So in the beginning, he said we wanted to be like yeah, you said it, Rora it is. He said, let's be like Aurora. We can be really humble, give up ourselves. And then he realized, well, Aurora can hurt someone. So then he says, okay, let's be like K. K is even lower than the Auroras, right? And after that, he says, oh, but wait a minute. When there's a storm, the K gets up and flies up and gets on people too. So I don't think that's going to be, something that's going to work. What do you think he's going to talk about next? What do you think he's going to say next? Not Aurora, not K. Anything else you can think of? Let's see. Let me give you a hint. What did you guys think of? This could be a little tricky because the picture has many different things in it, but there's one thing in here that Guru Sahib that Bhagat Kabir Ji is telling us about. Let me go see the chat. I see some people said mountains, snow, water, or trees. Water, more water I see. And guess what? You're right. Let's go and see what he says. Oh, by the way, water is the right answer, but what's the word that he used for water? Do you think he used the word pani or jal? Tell whoever's close to you, what do you think it is? Did he use pani or jal? Harjan aisa chahiye jo pani sarbang. So he said, yes, we spoke about Auroras and the quality is good, they're very humble. Yes, we spoke about K, they're even more humble. But still, the Aurora, it can hurt us. The K, it can get all over us and dirty us up. Pani is something that, becomes like someone else. So I want to show you something. What do I have over here? Can all of you see? If I hold it far, I have a little vase. It's a straight vase, and there's water in it. Do you see the water wiggling up here? Yeah? Now, what's going to happen if I take this water and I put it in this? You see this? Do you see this cool vase? It's not straight anymore, right? It has this big thing. Is the water only going to be straight? Let's see. Are you ready to see? I want to make sure I don't. Aha! See, the water went into this and took on the shape of this. So he said, you know what? I think this is a good idea. Water, we should be like water because, water can go into anything and take on the shape of that. And, however someone wants us to be, we can just be like that. I think that's a good idea. Let's do that. So, Harjan aisa chahiye, just jo pani sarbang, right? But then, by the way, if I take this and I put it in the freezer for one day, what's going to happen to it? You're right. It's going to freeze and become ice, right? And if I take this and I put it into a bowl over the fire and I start giving it fire, what's going to happen? It's going to boil over, right? So water can also do these other things where it can become really cold and really hot. So yeah, it's sometimes good to take on, what other people are thinking, but that's really not that good either, right? Because you don't really want to always be like someone else. You want to be like yourself, right? So there are two things that happen to water. When you make it really cold, it can freeze. And when you give it some fire, it can start boiling over. So you don't want to become that kind of a person who is ice cold. That when you see that people are suffering right in front of your eyes and your emotions are so cold that you won't do anything about it. You want to be that kind of a person? And the reason why sometimes you become that kind of a person is because you feel like, people are just saying cold things to me. So they make you feel like they keep saying cold things to you. So keep freezing and freezing. And you don't want to do anything for anyone. You're like, forget it. I don't want to do it. And on the other hand, you don't want to boil over just because someone told me Manvinder Panji didn't say something nice about you. Manvinder Panji isn't being nice to someone just because someone keeps telling me about Manvinder Panji and making me boil over. I might just go and scream at her and be like, Manvinder Panji, how can you even do something like that? That's just horrible. By the way, Manvinder Panji, I hope you don't mind. I'm just using you as an example, right? Okay? So we don't want to be too cold and not help in everyone, and we don't want to be too angry that we just bump away at anyone too. So the words that he uses over here is he says, Kabir, pani hua ta kya bhaya, sira tata hoye. Okay, it becomes too cold, becomes too hot. Okay, and then he says, what should we do? Harjan aisa chahiye jaisa har hi hoye. So over here, he's telling us that, you know what? First, we thought of the rocks, which were called, what were they called? Did all of you say Rode? Yes, Rode. And we thought that they're very humble, so we should become humble like that. That's how we're going to get to meet Vahiguru. And then he said, well, the rocks can hurt someone, so maybe we don't want to be like that. So then what do we want to be like? K, right? And he said K is even more down to earth, even more humble. We can be like that. And then he said, oh, wait a minute. When there's a wind, it can come all over us. If someone gives us some wind, we can be mean to people and we get all over them. So we don't want to be that kind of a person. And then he said we should be like, what was the word he used? Did he use jal or pani? Yes, pani. He said we should be like pani because whatever we put it into, whatever it takes on the shape of whatever we kind of get it into, right? And then he says, but wait a minute. It can become extremely cold or extremely hot and boil over. I don't want to be that kind of a person who is going to be extremely angry all the time or extremely ice cold that I don't want to really care about anything. It doesn't matter, right? We don't want to be that. But he said, but you know what? Deep down, remember in the beginning we said he really wants to connect with Vahiguru. He really wants to connect with Ik Onkar. He says, so in order for us to connect with Vahiguru, we have to be like Vahiguru. What does that mean? Be like Vahiguru. Be like Ik Onkar. Have you heard that before? What does that mean? Where do you think we can hear that? Where do you think that we can see that? Well, before we talk about that, I hope you can think about it. I want to just go through the whole Sabad with you once, okay? And so remember I told you in the beginning that a lot of times in the heading, it tells us if it's a slok. So over here it says Slok Bhagat Kabir Ji, okay? And these are 3 of his sloks that we picked, but all these sloks, there are about 200 of them, okay? But these 3 I thought were quite helpful for me to kind of understand what Bhagat Kabir Ji is explaining and what we need to do. So it goes like this. Kabir, roda hoye ro baat ka, tajman ka abman. Give up your pride, give up your things, become like the little roda. Aisa koi das hoye, tai mile Bhagwan. When there's this kind of a individual, that's when you end up meeting with Vahiguru. Kabir roda hua ta kya bhaya, panthi ko dukh de. Aisa ko tera das hai, jo dharni mein khe. So he's saying, you know, the roda ends up hurting the person that's on the path. So the person, the kind of individual who is serving should be the kind who is like the dust in the earth. Kabir khe hui to kya bhaya, jo ud lage ang. When the khe goes into up in the air with the wind, it gets blown away, it comes and gets on me. So harjan aisa chahiye jo pani sarbhang. We should be like water, which kind of takes on the shape of everything else, and in many cases, you know, becomes like them. So Kabir, pani hua ta kya bhaya, sida tata hoye, becomes very hot and very cold. So harjan aisa chahiye, jaisa hari hoye. Sorry, I moved that over. So everyone can read that line in green. Harjan aisa chahiye, jaisa hari hoye. Can everyone say that with me one more time? Ready? Harjan aisa chahiye, jaisa hari hoye. And where can we find what that Vahiguru is like? We can find it in Mool Mantar. Has everyone heard of Mool Mantar? I'm pretty sure everyone has heard of Mool Mantar. And guess what? Remember in the beginning of the workshop, we spoke about Guru Granth Sahib Ji? And in Guru Granth Sahib Ji, on the very first page, the opening of the Guru Granth Sahib Ji is the Mool Mantar, which is Ik Onkar Satnam Karta Purak Nirpao Nirvair Akal Murat Ajuni Sapang Gur Prasad. So Ik Onkar, when we talk about Ik Onkar, oftentimes you may have heard, you know, people call it as one God, right? But just imagine Guru Sahib used Ik, the number 1. So it's this one force, okay? And there's Satnam is eternal identity. And Karta Purak is this creative personality who is always fearless and without any enmity against anyone, without any hatred towards anyone. And it's a timeless being, unborn, and full of their own awareness, self-illumined. And you know how all of this can be realized? By Guru's grace, by Vahiguru's grace. So this is another way to look at it. What do we have to do? If we want to become like Vahiguru, we have to become like the one, right? Like the one force. We have to recognize the eternal principles cultivate a creative response. What this means is that whatever we try to solve, we do it in a creative way. We come up with a creative way of figuring it out. And we have to display fearless behavior. Look at no one as an enemy. Do things that are timeless. Rise above consequences. And we have to consider ourselves, look inside of ourselves and say, what is our original self? And you know what? Guru Sahib tells us in one of his Barnis, he says, Man tu jot sarup hai, apna mool pachan. Oh my mind, you are the embodiment of that true force, that one force. Recognize it and become like it. That's in the same way it's kind of explaining us that thing. So, what are some things that you can think about that can help you become more like Vahiguru? Are there any things that come to your mind? Can you think of anything that becomes like Vahiguru? That it can help you become like Vahiguru? Now this is not a question that has to be answered right away, but this is a question that I want us to think about. That what can we do to bring Vahiguru's qualities, Ikonkar's qualities within us? So here are some examples that I thought we can come up with, okay? And these are just examples, but you can decide how you want to do that. So when we think about one force, right, we can maybe create a garden together, because the way we can always tell that there's one force around us is because Creator is in creation. There's no separation between what is around us and what is Vahiguru, right? And I think someone even said this in the chat, that Vahiguru is everywhere. So, but remembering that it's a one force that doesn't separate everything, it's a quality that brings everyone together, right? And it's the source of everyone. So if it's the source of everyone, we shouldn't really be thinking about anyone being separate or different or not as good as us, right? Those are things we have to take out of our mind and remember to kind of bring it all together. So that is Ikonkar, right? That's something we can do. You can even create your family tree, and no matter how back you go, or even if you start right now, what is going to be the source? The source is still going to be Ikonkar, right? Within us. Then we have Satnam, okay? So oftentimes Satnam, we only think about truth, right? Because Sat comes in there. But, when we think of Nam, Satnam, it actually is what we can identify with. Identify means is how I can relate to the qualities of that which is always true. Okay, so who are we talking about? We're talking about Ikonkar. So the qualities of Ikonkar are truthfulness, honesty, right? Kindness, goodness, patience, respect for all. So this is how we can remember that if we start appreciating each other, if we start noticing people who are doing kind things and honest things and good things and patient things, these are the things that can help us build our qualities even more. And then we can also think about Sakhis, about our gurus who taught us through the good qualities like truth. Okay, so there are a lot of Sakhis that you can read, and you realize that all those qualities are in there of individuals, including our gurus and also Gursikhs of the time, who had all these qualities in them. And the reason why we read them is to build on these qualities. Okay, then being creative. I am sure many of you are very creative, right? That really, you have a lot of things that you end up doing and especially now, a lot of us are home. we have a little bit extra time on our hand, and we think of different ways of coming up with something, right? So you don't, even if you're studying, right? It was a creative thing that a lot of your teachers came up with. They figured out what can we do to help our students and make sure that they can learn. So what they did was they created a different way to kind of teach you. So you have to start thinking outside of just, one way of doing things. I mean, and the way we know that Guru Ikonkar is creative is all we have to do is look around and think about our walk that we kind of did with Bhagat Kabir Ji as he walked through all of nature. All this was creativity of who? The one, Ikonkar, right? The one force. So we want to take on those qualities as well. Then we come to Nirpo, Nirvair. Now, a lot of times, Nirpo, right, is when you are fearless. A lot of times we, depending on how old we are, we end up getting scared about things that we don't know about. That's one of the reasons why we get scared. So one of the things that you can do is you can go on nature walks and try to get to know creatures and critters in your backyard. The more you get to know about them, the more you'll understand them, and the more you will not be afraid of them. So even a snake, right? A lot of people are afraid of snakes. Are there a lot of people? I'm sure you would raise your hand. If you were in the workshop, you would raise your hand and you'd say, yeah, I don't like snakes. They're not good. So the thing is, you don't want to be afraid of the snake, but you want to know what is the safest way to be away from the snake so that the snake doesn't bite you or sting you and hurt you. So that is different from being afraid of a snake, right? So you have to learn about these things to be able to do that. And hatred. What is hatred? Hatred is when there is no love. Okay? When there is no love, then that becomes hatred. So you want to be able to tell anyone, including yourself, starting with yourself, that hatred is just not acceptable. You cannot think of anyone in a way that you hate something. Okay? You may not agree with certain things about someone, but it doesn't mean that you have to hate them. They can have their own way of thinking, their own thoughts, but when you show hate to someone, then you've lost all your love. And remember those qualities we were talking about? Those all come from love. So nirpo is a separate word, and nirvair, which is without not being anyone's enemy, and you're only someone's enemy if you forget love. Okay, and then we have so we did nirpo, nirvair, akal, murat, ajuni, saban. Now all these sakhis, and even when we were talking about Bhagat Kabir Ji, right? He was born in 1398, right? So maybe he wrote the Sabad when he was 20 years later, 25 years later. All the message is still timeless, right? So we have to think about things that we do in our life that are always timeless. And a lot of this we can do when we are using love from inside, okay? And then self-illumined. What does self-illumined mean? This is really talking about building more and more awareness, okay? The more and more we understand things, the more and more we realize things, the more we'll be able to make the right choices. Okay, so, maybe for SikhRI, someone wants to know, well, how can I understand SikhRI more? Maybe we can think of games. Maybe we can think of different things that we can read. So we want to kind of explore different things that we can learn more about. Just because we think that something might be a little bit hard for me, we don't want to do it, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try. If we learn about it, the more knowledge we get, the more we'll be able to act. Now, all this can be done, right? But all this is realized when you feel grace, okay? And the more you become like Vahiguru, remember, Harjan aisa chahiye jaisa har hi hoye. The more you become like Vahiguru, the more you will feel grace. The Gur Prasad, that's a grace that you feel from Vahiguru. So grace is not something where I just stand here and something will fall on me. Okay? Grace is something where I have to keep working on my qualities of becoming a better and better individual, because eventually I want to be able to remember that there's no difference between me and my Vahiguru, my Ikunkar, and everyone around me has that same source. That's when you start feeling the grace, and that's when you feel like you really know Vahiguru or Ikunkar. Okay, so we're going to end over there today, and I will let any questions, if we have, we can ask. You're welcome to ask some questions, or if you have any thoughts, you're welcome to share your thoughts as well. Okay, Manvinder Panji, should I send it back to you? Did we have questions, or people are still kind of maybe take it in and thinking about different things? Some of your ideas, right? We were just giving you some examples, but you're welcome to share your ideas on different things that can be done as well. Oh, I see there's a question over here. What does God mean? Is that a question that someone wants to give an idea to, or it's a question that we're just wanting to think about? Because right now, when we were talking about Vahiguru, when we were talking about Ikunkar, we spoke about how Vahiguru or Ikunkar is this one force that goes through everything. Because we said there was no difference between the creator and the creation, right? So when we start understanding the qualities of goodness, of truthfulness, then that is what we start feeling, right? And that's when we know that we have that we know what Ikunkar is. And similarly, when the question is asked, what is grace? To have that feeling is to know that you are graced. So a long time ago, some people used to ask me, what is grace? And I used to kind of say, grace is like, it's always showering. There's always rain coming down, but I don't want to get wet by it. That means I don't want to feel it. Okay. So what I do is I take an umbrella to block it off. So if you want to feel grace, you have to be, first of all, you have to be willing to feel grace, right? And the way you end up feeling grace in how Guru Sahib usually tries to explain it, and what I understand from it, is that you have to start putting these qualities into your life, right? You have to start putting these qualities into your life. And when those qualities become a part of you, you're automatically feeling the grace. Okay? And then there was a question about what is Bhagat. Okay? Bhagat is someone who is a devotee, someone who remembers Ikunkar, who's a devotee of someone. Then we had a question, why is Mool Mantar called Mool Mantar? So Mool means the very beginning. Okay? And so, like I said, when we were talking about Mool Mantar, that it starts out, Guru Granth Sahib, the first thing that Guru Nanak Sahib said to us is Ik Onkar, told us about this one force that was amongst everyone. Okay. Oh, there was another question that I missed in there, and that was, how do we know God is real? Now, this is a question that you have to answer for yourself. But what I can kind of help you say is that when you feel that you have taken on all those qualities, when you feel that you can look at someone and you don't feel that they are different from you, that's when you can feel that Vahiguru is real or Ik Onkar is real. Okay? But everyone experiences it in a different way. Okay? And I don't even think Guru Sahib doesn't say that, oh, if you feel this, then you'll know God is real. If you don't feel this, then you don't know God is real. So I think Guru Sahib is actually telling us that you have to, it's an experience that you will have through your practice of understanding, to know that, it is real, right? And all of this, right, when we talk about Ik Onkar, when we talk about grace, all of this is when you have to get rid of, you know what a veil is? When it's something is covered, something is putting something away from something, you're hiding something away. All that veil of unkindness and hatred, when you take that away, all you're left with is love. Okay? And love is an action. It's an action, and that means is that anything that you do where you put your qualities out into the world by doing it, that is showing love. Okay? All right. I think there's one last question that I see, which is, someone's asking, did Bhagat Kabir Ji actually go on a nature walk, and did everything actually happen? So like I said in the beginning, it doesn't say anywhere if Bhagat Kabir Ji went on a nature walk or not. But to me, when I think about his life and I think about him being a weaver and sitting out and often being in nature, I feel that I'm sure he may have gone on many, many walks, right? Because back then, there weren't cars that we would just get onto a car and go. Even to go anywhere, he was probably doing that. So it isn't written anywhere that when he went on a certain walk, then he thought of all these things. But when I think of him, this is what I usually picture in my mind, that, he's the one who kind of helped us understand. He understood about, the Rode and the Pani and the K, and he gave us a way of looking at it in a different way, and the qualities of it. How are we doing on time, Manvinder? Okay, looks like we have another. I have another question. Where does Vahiguru live? So this is from a question from California. So what was the one thing we were talking about when we said one force, when we said Ik Onkar, right? Where was I pointing a lot to? Was I pointing somewhere there? Was I pointing there? I was kind of pointing here, right? Vahiguru, Ik Onkar. I was talking about how there's a light within us that is kind of the way that we understand what the qualities are and how we act. So Vahiguru, lives everywhere, right? Vahiguru is in all of creation. All right? And all of creation is, when we see all of creation, that is when we know that there had to be a creator. And who is that creator? एक ओंकार. I think that might be a good place for us to actually end, because that reminds everyone that Vahiguru is not there. Yes, Vahiguru is everywhere, but the first place we have to remember where Vahiguru is right here within us. And when we're able to remember Vahiguru within us and really feel it, that's when we are graced. That's when that love can show us everything around us as Vahiguru. So I think this is a good place for us to end. And if I'm sure if there are any more questions, that you can probably send them to SikhRI, and this recording will also be up, and we can continue to do this. So thank you very much. Vahiguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vahiguru Ji Ki Fateh. Manvinder, on to you. No, Manvinder is asking if she can hear us. If we can hear her, I mean. Okay. I think Manvinder may be having some technical difficulties.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you now.
Okay, great. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation, Jasmine. I learned a lot. I know some people asked if we were going to be doing another one. So on June 14th, actually, we're going to be celebrating Children's Day with another webinar. And that'll feature a lot of music and poetry and reading, and will take place on June 14th. So yeah, please tune in. I loved how much everyone was interacting today. It was very nice to see. And I apologize for the technical difficulties. Those won't be happening after this. Yeah, so just some information to wrap this up. On behalf of SikhRI, I thank Jasmine Kaur for taking time to connect with the Sikh world today. And thank you to our Sangat for tuning in today and for spending this time with us. I really appreciate how much everyone was interacting. It was so nice to see. Please tune in for our next live webinar, COVID-19, Philanthropy and Sikhi, where we'll be joined by Dr. Amar Singh, Dr. Kuldeep Singh, and Dr. Harshana Kaur to discuss how COVID-19 will change the world order and personal situations, its impact on health, social interactions, and the economy. I know that's more geared to older visitors of SikhRI, but again, the Children's webinar, the Children's Day webinar that will be happening will be on June 14th. And lastly, don't forget to tune into the Sikhcast, a podcast produced by SikhRI, where we explore the various issues and events affecting Sikhs worldwide. Thank you for joining in. Today's webinar will be ending now. Vahiguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vahiguru Ji Ki Fateh.